It's not. All right, we'll go ahead and get started today. This is a meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Agency Board of Directors. It'll be conducted in compliance with the Nebraska statutes of the Open Meeting Act, which are posted on the wall of the boardroom. We'll get started with introductions and roll call. Liz?
Supervisor Scott Bell. Mayor Rusty Hyde.
Here.
Mayor Doug Kendig.
Here.
Commissioner David Blue.
Here.
Commissioner Chris Rogers.
Here.
Council member Don Rowe.
Here.
Supervisor Carol Vinton. Here. Mayor Gene Stothert. And Mayor Matt Walsh.
All right, well, we want to welcome down to the board. You guys haven't had a chance to meet it yet, so just afterwards. So I'm just gonna take Pete's position. So welcome. Approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion made. Second.
Any questions or discussion? Liz?
Rowe.
Yes.
Hyde.
Yes.
Blue.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Benton. Yes. Kendig.
Yes. Item C is approval of the board minutes from the June 22, 23 meeting. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? Liz?
Rowe.
Abstain.
Hyde.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Benton.
Yes.
Kendig.
Yes. Item D are the agency reports. We'll start with Mike.
Absolutely. So I'll pull up my slide deck here. And first and foremost, welcome to Councilman Rowe, welcome to the Board of Directors. You've been, during his time as a councilman with the city of Omaha, he's been to a number of MAPA events, including one of our site visits and trip to the city as well, correct, for the streetcar that we helped organize in the city council as well. So welcome aboard. Excited to have you here. Just some brief notes here. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome a visitor we have here today. We have Justin Luther and Wayne Fedora, who's the new administrator for FHWA Nebraska. Joe Werning, longtime division administrator for Nebraska, retired earlier this year. I don't know, how many years was he here?
Since 2008.
Since 2008, so a real long time serving kind of partner in project development and project delivery for us. And so we're really excited to welcome Wayne here from Virginia. Is that correct?
Yes.
So new kind of leadership at FHWA Nebraska. Justin also promoted, so congratulations to Justin to his new role as planning team lead as well. So kind of key partners on the federal transportation side of things for us, and excited to have him today. On that note, talking a little bit about an opportunity that MAPA was made aware of about a week and a half ago related to a process called August redistribution. So this involves coordination with Nebraska Department of Transportation. Essentially, each year, all of the money that's made available to states through the Highway Trust Fund, there's a portion of it that essentially doesn't get spent. And whatever doesn't get spent at kind of the federal level or between states, there's an opportunity for states to have an obligation for the additional obligation authority made available to them through this August redistribution. So states of Iowa and Nebraska are very adept at positioning their projects so that they can basically access as much of their portions on an annual basis as possible. This year, because of some of the projects that we have programmed in our TIP, it's really an opportunity for us to advance some of the repayment to the city of Omaha for projects that they've already incurred, projects that we call advanced construction. So basically the city of Omaha has already expended those funds. The funds have already been obligated, and really they're just waiting for that repayment of federal funds based on us, our ability to balance our checkbook with fiscal restraint. And this is an opportunity for really kind of some phases in our TIP to be swapped and make those funds available to the city of Omaha. So really a great opportunity for us to coordinate with Nebraska DOT. You'll see some action on our TIP amendment later this meeting, where the court's going to highlight updating kind of our apportionment balance, which was a change that really kind of made some of this possible. And then we'll be also coordinating with MDOT and FHWA Nebraska with an administrative modification to our TIP later on in the year when we finally get a sense of that. But it's a pretty substantial amount of funding for the city of Omaha, roughly up to $18 million, depending on what is ultimately made available to the state of Nebraska. So a really key opportunity there. Really happy to do this coordination. It's not a process that we're normally involved in, so we're excited that we're getting that chance. MAPA in the news, just highlighting a few things here. There's been a lot of stories and coverage about air quality in the region, a lot of wildfires in Canada. But again, an opportunity for MAPA, our ozone awareness campaign, or Just Such Cleaner Air campaign. They do get quoted and mentioned about some of the recommendations that we have about how to operate, what concerns you might have about air quality and things like that on the website. AARP also launched a competition with the city of Omaha for accessory dwelling units. These are kind of the granny flats, the mother-in-law flats that you hear about, finding ways of converting garages or building separate units. MAPA and our Housing Development Committee have kind of long supported that as a strategy, and AARP asked us to help promote this competition for architects and designers to really design an ADU that will be available within the city of Omaha, really with an expedited planning process. And so kind of a way of helping sort of transition some of these missing middle housing options in communities and projects that we're really excited to help about. And then finally, there's some safety planning work going on with some community members around the community, kind of noting and concerns about some of the major roadways within the city of Omaha, and there's coordination points there about MAPA's ongoing planning process and safety planning. And just a note there about some of the residents' intentions to coordinate with us in the city of Omaha and other partners at the state as well about those issues. So really kind of tying into a lot of the work that MAPA is already. I wanted to just highlight, I keep a running list of things that I want to chat with the board about, I want to put in this executive director's report. And this is just a very extensive list of things that have happened over the last 30 days. And frankly, it's really a testament to all of the things that our staff do. These are meetings that I've held, or meetings that our leadership team held with key partners around the region. You see really a broad range of things here, from neighborhood groups all the way to economic development groups, state partners, private sector partners. And it's really been kind of an atypical month in terms of the amount of coordination that we've had with a number of different partners around. And it's just one of these things that I wanted to touch on here, as we don't often have the time to kind of reflect on that really key coordination role that MAPA plays for all of our community members. And you see representation here across the region for some of those conversations that MAPA's. Upcoming events, I wanted to let you all know there's some key statewide events on the Nebraska side that you may be interested in. Statewide Broadband Summit. This is coordinated with the Governor's Economic Development meeting in Kearney on August 8th and 9th. The Broadband Summit is actually on the 8th, with the Economic Development Summit being on the 9th. And so this is kind of the culmination of MAPA's participation in the digital equity planning process. The economic development districts on the Nebraska side of the river have been really kind of the statewide public or community engagement mechanism for the state's plan. So all of that work's coming together on August 8th to talk with stakeholders, talk with leadership about what comes next, what have we heard throughout this process. NDOT is also hosting what they're calling an infrastructure summit on August 23rd, again in Kearney. The Unis Center is a lot of traffic. And this will really be about connecting community leaders to federal funding opportunities, how to position yourself to take advantage of those funds, how to put a project together, really almost a ground level of sort of engagement in terms of how community leaders can sort of make the most out of bipartisan infrastructure and really kind of understand what a successful project will look like with some of those projects. The next item is NADTC, which is the National Association of Disability Carlos, what is the NADTC? I had it and now I forgot.
Aging Disability Transportation Center.
Thank you very much.
That's why I'm here.
Omaha was selected as the Omaha region was selected as a host site for this national symposium. So we'll be coordinating a meeting in partnership with Metro Transit about some of the challenges that aging populations and disabled populations have with mobility, with accessing transportation services. This really builds out of the coordination that we have with our coordinated transit committee and our coordinated transit plan, which Travis will be highlighting in updates here later in the meeting. But really a great opportunity for us to partner with Metro Transit, think about some of the service delivery and what those opportunities might be for that. So that's going to be late August, early September. They've given us about a 2 to 3 week window with which to hold that conversation. I think there's 6 sites around the country that are going to be having a similar meeting as part of this kind of national conversation about these issues. So really excited to secure the funding to be one of those sites. Heartland 2050 Summit, this year we're looking to host one at the Granary in Ralston, so kind of a new part of that community development there in Ralston. And excited to show up this venue, but also highlight some key projects and investments around resilience, kind of the broader theme around not just resilience in terms of disaster recovery, but also kind of economic development, and also really kind of the key role that renewable fuels and energy play in this kind of resilience. Think about climate action and some of the other conversations that are going on. So we're still working on a date, but we are excited that we've secured venue, and we're going to be working with the team here to host that here in the coming months. And then finally, I wanted to make the Iowa folks around this table aware of a meeting that the Iowa West Foundation is hosting on September 8th at the Carson Community Center. It's focused on community projects in Harrison, Pot, and Mills County. They're calling it the Rural Summit. It's really kind of a celebration of some of the key places that communities have come together and be successful. MAPA and Iowa West and a number of other partners of Golden Hills Resource Conservation have been partners in the Parks to People effort, which is going to be one of the projects that's going to be highlighted, really focused on natural resources, the West Hills, leveraging those for tourism dollars after transportation, things like that. So that's kind of the over one of the things that we're going to talk about, but there's lunch and a speaker and really hopefully some good conversation about how we sort of replicate those models and get some more things going on. Another event notification. So on October 4th, we'll be hosting our annual dinner at the Bellevue Berry Farm. And so the council officials meeting, this is in the evening. And we're excited to have all of you, if you're available, and as well as other community partners come. Our hope is, and our plan is to have somebody from the Build America Bureau, which is a portion of the U.S. Department of Transportation Office of the Secretary, but really focused on kind of innovative project delivery, innovative project financing. They have a lot of resources around technical assistance about how communities can be more successful in getting discretionary grant funding and really positioning themselves, again, to take advantage of all of the resources that are available. Next month, Director Kramer from the Nebraska Department of Transportation here at this board meeting talking about some of those opportunities with the Build America Bureau. We're really excited about that partnership and some of the ideas that she has about deepening our partnership with NDOT and really securing more resources for our community. So be on the lookout for that. That's kind of a prelude to this meeting there in October. So, And then finally, last month we had some staff updates, our new staff members and interns, but we also wanted to let you know that our intern Rachel has actually been promoted and brought on as a permanent member of our staff as a transportation planner as of the end of June. So right after the board meeting last month, that was made official, and so we're really excited to have that intern pipeline have resulted in somebody who was excited to stay on. So Rachel's not here today, but we're excited to have her on board as a permanent member of our team. You all heard from her to have her intern experience several months ago as well. We're excited to have her as part of our transportation and data. So any questions? Otherwise, that wraps up my remarks.
Any questions or comments from Mike?
Very good. I'll move on to agenda item E then, which is the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve, and I'll take both items 1 and 2, unless you desire to pull them all separately.
So
I'm sorry, a second.
So, any further discussions or questions? Liz?
Rowe,
yes.
Height,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Benton,
Yes.
Kendick.
Yes. Item F is old business, and again, I'll take both of these unless you desire to have them separated.
Court?
So the, these two items are, well, I guess second one's related to an older tip amendment. We'll get there in a moment. So the first item on here is Amendment 10 to the current Transportation Improvement Program. Like Mike said, this involves some of that August redistribution work that we've been doing. So the first piece on there, this wasn't actually included when the packet went out last week. This is kind of a that we rolled in just earlier this week. So we're increasing the spending authority that we're showing in the tip from about 16.5 million to 18 million. It doesn't effectively change the amount of money that the region is going to get. This is just a more accurate picture after talking with NDOT of how much money we've actually got this year. And this will enable us to work with NDOT to reposition some projects. We're going to move some of those forward. It's actually some stuff that's more or less already been done by the city of Omaha. But those projects will actually be showing those in administrative modification next month once we get all the final details from NDOT. So that piece is just basically setting us up to be able to do that to the fullest extent. So I guess to put it simply, we were showing that we could spend up to 16.5 million. We can actually spend up to a little more than 18 million. And that is not inclusive of carryover that we had from last year, which is an additional 7, I want to say 7.5. So it just kind of adjusts the total that we're showing in there to be more up to date with what we're hearing from NDOT.
What's the thought process on designating programs that you're going to pay for extra this year?
What do you mean?
Well, you're going to be able to spend $1.5 million extra.
Oh, right.
You said you designated Omaha programs. How does the administration, what's their thought process?
It's it's kind of a convenience thing. So these projects that we're moving forward, it's work that the city of Omaha has already done. They did it in advance. They advanced constructed it. A lot of it's resurfacing throughout the city. And these are basically repayments. So once the money would become available, we would repay the city that amount. So the work has been done. And what this does is these are kind of like, they're like low-hanging fruit for NDOT to be able to obligate federal funds because they don't have to do anything else. The funds are ready to obligate. Whereas if we were to try to move other projects forward, those projects would have to be ready for construction. These are already done.
Okay.
That's what.
And I would note that this, had the city of Bellevue's 36th Street Phase 2 project been let this year, as it was originally programmed, this wouldn't have been available. So we wouldn't have been able to kind of take advantage. So it's really kind of two things: the spending authority that's available to us, our portion of allocated spending authority, growing kind of more than we anticipated this year, and then two, shifts in schedule of other projects, we're basically flip-flopping projects between fiscal years. And so the net effect is not an increase of funding to any community to this schedule change, but we have to position our program this way to take advantage of the opportunity.
Thank you for that.
And Court, since this is a tip, since the figure is now needing to be redone, is this a start all paperwork or is this just add to? How do you change that?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much just an add to,
It's
so,
just
you
an
know,
add to.
when you see that in this table showing that we're going from 16.5 to 18,
Right,
that'll be plugged into a table in a database that then just kind of automatically updates everything else, so it's got a new balance. And-
Bank error in our favor.
Right.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay.
I changed a few digits and then the whole program is sort of.
To do a tip over the river, it's a real big process, so this is why I'm
Sure, it is.
marveling at you guys,
Well,
how easy this is. Yeah.
I like the way that Iowa DOT does it, I will say, they make things simpler in a different way.
They make it simpler for us, but
Okay.
they do restrict what can be changed.
Yes.
The current.
Got it.
If we didn't have any past projects, were we able to carry that money over then?
There are some limitations, but for the most part, yes.
Okay.
The main thing, years ago, we entered into what was called an obligation authority flexibility with the DOT about that particular issue, that if our projects slid between years or between multiple years, that at least what's promised to the region as part of our apportionment would be made available to us within the 5-year period, because there was a portion of time where we basically, that wasn't the case. And so you may recall a very large balance, over $50 million of funding being made available in MAPA, and that's spending it down over time. But yes, that is the current provision, that we can't have that flexibility to move things and shift things as it's scheduled. It's not used or lose.
All right, and the other 3 projects are Iowa side projects that are related to our transportation alternatives program, TAP funds. First one, Council Bluffs City County Connector Trail, the cost estimate on that shot up by about $690,000. So we took that to our TAP committee as well as TTAC, had them look at it and explain what's going on. And they recommended that we go ahead and increase the award to Council Bluffs City County Connector Trail. If we did not do that, it misses letting date. It probably would let still this fiscal year, so before October. And both the city and the Iowa DOT were very interested in making sure that it stays on schedule. So we're trying to keep it on schedule. And part of how we're able to keep it on schedule is Carter Lake's walking and bike trail is actually moving from 23 to 24, which opens up a little bit of room in the 23 program that lets Council Bluffs take some of that 23 money and utilize it this year. And then Council Bluffs South Expressway Trail Phase 1, in order to accommodate their other trail project happening this year, needs to slide out a little bit. So it's going to go from their construction year from 25 to 27. It doesn't fit with that cost increase, and the city said that they would rather have this done now than preserve that other spot. So it's going to slide out a little bit. The Carter Lake project is not otherwise affected. It was going to move anyway. It does open it up to allow for this change for Council Bluffs, but otherwise, no impact. And that's amendment 10. Any other questions on it? Now I'll move over to our LRTP amendment 3. So long range transportation plan amendment 3, we actually brought this to last month to request opening up a public comment period. That public comment period will actually end next Friday. We couldn't quite line it up with perfectly with board meetings, but if assuming we don't get any comments between now and then, we'll carry it forward. We haven't had any public comments yet. We did a public open house last Thursday. We didn't have any. We don't often expect a whole lot of comments on the amendments. We do a pretty good push at the start of the LRTP to get as much involvement as we can, but for the amendments, there's usually not a whole lot of people paying attention. So I think it's kind of the way it is. That being said, everything is the same except for one change. I actually did get some additional details in the second table on Bellevue Mission Avenue streetscape improvements. I did not have a project cost in there when I brought this to all of you last month, and got that project cost. It's about 10.2 million. And it will be streetscape improvements between Hancock and Washington Streets. I've got a few other details. I don't think it's fully fleshed out yet, but those are some details I didn't quite have when I brought this to you last month. But overall, not a whole lot changed from when we opened it up for
Any questions for court on either one of the resolutions? Now I would take a motion to approve both.
So moved.
Second.
There's no further questions or discussion. Liz?
Rowe,
Yes.
Height,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Morrison, yes, Benton,
Yes.
Kennedy.
Yes. Item G is new business. I am going to take these separately. Item 1 are new contracts, agreements. Item A, Mike, did you have anything to add on this?
Sure, I can touch on it, and Matt, if there's anything I missed, you'd be welcome to touch on it. But this is our audit engagement letter for our FY23 audit with IGA. So this is the new firm that the board selected last year, and they did complete our FY22 audit. And so this audit engagement letter is essentially our contract for audit services for the upcoming, or for the fiscal year that just ended up June 30th. Matt, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the schedule and some of your anticipation of when they'll get started this year. I will say we did go back and forth with them a little bit on some of the provisions around payment. They had asked for to be paid upfront for a significant portion of this. We pushed back on that. They changed it back to the language that
MAPA doesn't pay in advance.
Yeah.
So yes, the contract amount, they call it an engagement letter. That's just the terminology the auditors use, but it's a bona fide contract. It's customary, and we've had Omaha legal look at this and try to come up with better language, because I don't like it, but I'm not going to be able to change the industry. Essentially, they give us an estimate of what it's going to cost, and then they always charge them. So the estimate is in line with their proposal that they submitted to the RFP in line for the second year. It's a 3-year proposal. So they're keeping with that, they're not inflating that, but we expect it to be 10-15% more. And the reason for that is that the scope that they're expecting could change just based on the interaction between my office and so this is pretty standard practice. The only other thing I would say, like Mike mentioned, we're expecting to begin a month or a month and a half or 45 days earlier than last year. So last year we had to wait until the audit back into those dark days. The 21 audit was finished in August, so we had to wait to start the new audit, but we finished in March on the normal schedule deadline in March for this, the 22 audit. So we believe that we can get the auditors in here by mid-October. That would be your first, but
So Mike, sir, Matt, speaking of the old auditors, sorry to take you to that.
Yeah.
They were requesting some additional payment. Did we resolve that?
We did. So we did not pay them the total amount that they requested. So the previous auditors last fall, I'm going to forget the numbers. I think we authorized an additional $2,000 above the contract amount, but they had requested $7,000.
right. I don't have the number. I think it was around $4,000 discrepancy, 4,100, if I recall. And we sent them the amount of previously negotiated amount that was immediately paid for us. We paid all the way up to that. And then there were some other additional costs prior to closure. So it was the amount that came after that we did not.
Right.
But so it was, I think it was above the actual engagement letter estimate, but that was because they were submitting progress payments. Between the time that we started calling them every day to finish and the time they actually did it. Then we just didn't pay after that. So, and they have not communicated any dissatisfaction with that arrangement since. So.
Matt, could we be under a contract for 4 or 5 years with so much and then they can't be adding, or would they never?
Well,
For that?
That's what we tried to, we had some conversations with our legal representation, and they were of the same mind, is that this is just the way the auditors do business.
Wow.
It's not just I Bailey, it's all auditors. They will do an engagement letter, as they will call it. It's funny because they're all about compliance and following the letter of the law, but then they'll, instead of following a contract, they'll follow the letter. The concept essentially is there's a scope, the scope is very vague, we don't know what we're gonna dig into, we can find all sorts of a mess. We need to have the flexibility and filling, you need to know. And so just in experience, it's 10, 15, 20%, just depends on how big a mess they feel like they have to clean up.
And last year, you may recall, I daily requested about 10% additional all over the sort of the engagement letter amount last year because of the expedited schedule. So with the previous audit sneaking into the time that we had to close out our financial statements to develop new financial statements, they were on a much more compressed schedule. This year.
I love hidden costs.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's great.
And I apologize for not writing that down there. They're wrong enough, but what type of penalties do we have that we could hold them to if we run into another auditor that doesn't receive? You got anything in there that protects us?
Well, nothing specifically other than a breach of contract. I mean, the standard breach of contract would be that, they would be liable.
Because
I mean, we have to sue them essentially for any loss to us as an agency. I don't know how to quantify being a high risk auditee. We could quantify it, but it would be after the fact. It would just be, it could be 2 years down the road that we didn't get a grant because of this, or the additional audit requirements that go into this. So that goes back to the auditor. So clearly we wouldn't stick with that auditor, we would go with a new auditor, but if we were a high risk auditee as a result of them, the feds aren't going to care. They're not going to, by the time we'd be able to get any type of leniency from the federal government regarding our status, like we would already be coming off of the high risk, and we would already have to, there'd just be no time. We'd have to have audited it at the higher level of detail scrutiny. That costs more, that about doubles your audit costs. So we could quantify our doubled audit costs with a new auditor in this scenario, and then litigate for that entire cost with the old auditor that got us into that position. But there's nothing specifically in our letter.
It's a little bit challenging because the audit engagement letter is about conducting an independent audit. So there's that level of independence that's sort of associated with that makes it difficult to have management oversight over the specific work of it and to be kind of partner to it and supporting it. So, no,
But they've got deadlines that they need to make before
Or
they
maybe
receive payment, that type of thing.
They're more worried about losing their accreditation with what is it called, AICPA.
sure.
So if they were to have that, and we would file a complaint, which we did not with our prior, we just didn't code it, but we would have had a legitimate complaint. If they lose their accreditation at AICPA, they just really can't do business. Even though it's a private, it's a professional organization, it's kind of like the bar for accountants or for auditors. So that's the real risk.
All right, any further questions for Mike and Matt? Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion?
Second,
Further discussion? Liz?
Rowe,
yes.
Height,
Yes.
Clue,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Morrison. Yes. Benton,
Yes.
and Bailey.
Yes, item 2 is resolution 2024 -03 coordinated transit plan amendment. Travis?
So last year I presented the amended coordinated transit or the updated coordinated transit plan to you. Due to some slightly different schedules, Iowa DOT does their review a year later. For the most part, they had no issues with our seat, and quite frankly, we're quite pleased with it. But they asked us to add limited English proficiency documents. So we classified this as a minor amendment, and basically what we did was we classified all of the limited English proficiency services that are provided by our transportation providers for coordinated transit within the region. And then some of this too is just a demographic analysis of kind of where people with limited English proficiency within our region. Like demographic information here as well. Obviously, kind of north, south Omaha, a little bit of the west end of Council Bluffs. But what we did here was made sure to showcase and maybe use this as a tool that maybe help people access resources a little more clearly. So we're going to put this on the website as well. Like here we put a table together of LED resources, Title VI resources, which is anti-discrimination policy for people with disabilities, seniors, and things like that. So every city who provides transportation has their resource here, and we plugged this in the plan as Iowa DOT requested.
Any questions for Travis? Now I'll take a motion to approve.
Motion.
There's no further discussion. Liz?
Rowe,
Yes.
Height,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Benton,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes. Item 3 is travel to the conference in Cleveland on September 24-29. Mike?
Yeah, so this is for our transportation staff to travel to the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations Conference in Cleveland. It's one of the national associations that we are a member of for the last 3 years now. But it's a good technical resource, especially with the bipartisan infrastructure law, a lot of great sessions on navigating programs, aligning the regional transportation planning process with some of these discretionary opportunities, and really good technical resources for our GIS and planning staff to look at professional development. So it's a good conference. Last year it was in Minneapolis, this year it's in Cleveland. So 4 of the staff traveling this year.
Any questions, Mike? Motion to approve.
I make the motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? Liz?
Rowe,
Yes.
Height,
Yes.
Luke,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Morrison, yes. Benton,
Yes.
Kendrick.
Yes. The dreaded conflict of interest form, Mike.
I don't think it's dreaded there, but it is our annual check here in July to, this is just a discussion. There's no formal approval, but just a reminder that as a MAPA board member, we do ask for disclosure of any real or potential conflicts of interest. That's standard in the O2 form related to our participation in your participation in the allocation, disbursement, and contracting of federal funds. So with that, this is just a reminder that we do this in July of each year as a part of your service to. So please, before you leave.
Yes. Or can you take it? That's fine. Order.
You
Yes,
can take
yeah,
it.
that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
And there are instructions if you do feel like you may have a conflict on the back, there are instructions on how to disclose that.
And I would just note, this is personal financial interest, not community. It's different. It's your party to real estate or.
If you want a concrete company, sure. Yeah, right. So, all right, moving on then to item H is a discussion item. Mike and Christina on our health insurance renewal.
Yeah, I'll kick us off. So the MAPA's health insurance renewals is one of the things we talked about during the budgeting process that we're on the September timeline. We included in our budget for FY24 a 5% increase in our renewal rates. We learned earlier this month that our renewal rates for kind of a similar existing plan would be roughly a 34% increase as opposed to 5%. It's kind of net over net when we look at the different options available to us. Our current plan is not going to be made available to us. Our claims balance, claims utilization was about $44,000 over the self-insured plan for our agency. So with that claims utilization, we're not able to maintain that existing plan. The other options that were provided to us both by Blue Cross Blue Shield, our current provider, and United Healthcare both represent a very significant increase. So with that, we are taking a step back from what we would normally do in July, which is have the board approve our new rates and kind of taking a step back, working with our hub, our broker, to kind of think through what some of our options may be, how to bring down that cost or absorb that cost. We have a lengthy conversation with the finance committee about some of our options, including changes to the 24 budget to make up that cost, including a hiring freeze, not hiring for an FTE, which is roughly, depending on the cost, between $90,000 and $140,000 to the agency, depending on which direction we go. The FTE gets us part of the way there. There might have to be other budgeting changes to accommodate that. Finance committee did ask us to consider as well incorporating this into our dues request for the next year if we wanted to maintain the existing. So we'll have more information next month at the board meeting, but this is a very significant change to the cost of MAPA's employer provided benefits.
So are you exploring other opportunities, Scott? I'm not seeing that on ours. Are you guys, Rusty? Have you seen that at your level?
So
That big of an increase?
currently we're under what they call a partially self-insured plan. And so we're no longer eligible for that because of that claims utilization balance, because we're negative about $45,000. So essentially we're being moved to a fully insured plan, which is age banded. So now we're kind of dealing with additional costs in that sense as well. And so we're looking at several Blue Cross Blue Shield plans. United Healthcare has a couple of competitive plans. And our broker actually is breaking down the coverage and the cost. And there are some ways that we can save. There are limited preferred networks that each individual can choose to opt into if they like. But we're going to have to really dive into those costs. And so that's why we made the decision to hold off and not rush this decision so we can look at those rates. But moving into that fully insured plan is why that cost is going so high.
That's
We
fine.
can, if we perform well enough, we could move back into the plan that we have been in. So the plan's not going away, we're just no longer eligible for it.
And I may have missed it. When are you looking to have all of your information and everything?
At the next finance committee meeting, we will have our benefits committee meeting as well. And so we'll likely have our broker there to kind of present those options and break down the cost. I mean, I think everyone is across the board seeing increases, but this is considerable. But it's really due to us moving out of that partially self-insured plan that we've had before and moving into fully insured.
I give that, and do you guys have an employee committee that deals with benefits?
Yes, so we have an internal benefits committee that will meet. And so that every department is represented in that committee, so that way we can have fair representation kind of across the agency and make sure that we're addressing any concerns.
Because the
have-
benefits cost is going up, the employee cost is going up too. with their
Yes.
share.
Yeah, and with us moving into an age banded plan, which we were not in before, costs can vary, will vary just based on, your spouse, your dependents, their ages. So a big change, and we don't want to rush it. So
Good idea.
So there's county insurance, there's state insurance, how can MAPA be fitting in any special categories? You know what I mean?
Well,
Like I don't know.
We haven't looked at that, and that just came up in a meeting that I was in with our investment pool, our in-pay trust. I'm on the board, and the board is comprised of county officials, and so they mentioned that
Yeah,
they could pull up, because they have, like, NACO is, the Nebraska
right.
Association of County Officials. They have a pool that they allow county employees to get on, especially for these smaller governments. I don't know, we haven't looked into that, but we should. We should, because there's potential savings even, not just a limit of the damage.
I mean, one of the challenges, and Christina kind of touched on it, moving to a fully insured plan as such a small employer, we just don't have much margin. We don't have, as large of a pool to
right, we're small.
make the insurers more money. I guess it's the.
I am surprised we were able to stay on the plan that we were on previously for as long as we did, because, you know, you're essentially paying into a clean fund. And so, you know, MAPA's grown from, I think we had like 19 FTEs and now we're up to 25. So I just think the costs have just continued to rise. And then with COVID, a lot of people put off different things. So kind of a lot of things have led up to this point. Now we're, you know, forced to make this decision, move into a different plan.
Yeah, we're seeing very similar things at Star Being. We basically had effectively one claim that was extremely high. We're looking at potentially self-insuring. We're looking at all options on the table right now because we're seeing that tremendous increase as well.
Got you. So no, that was a good explanation. Obviously checking, I think, Carol's comment about looking at some type of group. If it's,
Get in there.
I
Yeah,
know
we-
there's restrictions and everything, but the larger the group, obviously, the more the.
In past years, I mean, we had talked to, I think, Douglas County at one point about potential, but I think with like the bargaining units and things like that, there wasn't really a path for us to get through there. But maybe something like NACO could be an opportunity to consider, because, you know, we are. That's really.
Exactly.
All right, has anybody had any additional business or anything they'd like to talk about? If not, I appreciate you being here today, and I will adjourn the meeting and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Carol. Even if it's just.